For as long as most of us can remember, the US dollar has been, well, the undisputed king of global finance, right? Almost every barrel of oil, every major international contract, it was all priced and paid for in dollars. But what happens when the world starts to look for other options? Today, we're diving deep into this huge global shift known as de-dollarization.
So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at how the dollar got so powerful in the first place. Then, we'll explore why things are starting to change. After that, we'll check out the alternatives that are popping up. And finally, we'll really zoom in on what this all means for India and what its game plan looks like.
All right, let's dive right in. To really get what's happening today, we first have to understand the very foundation of the dollar's power. And it all revolves around the world's most critical commodity, oil.
So what exactly is a petrodollar? It sounds complicated, but it's actually pretty straightforward. It's literally any US dollar used to buy oil. But here's the thing. This simple transaction, when it's repeated millions of times every single day, created this massive, constant global demand for dollars. It basically cemented the dollar's role as the world's default currency.
Now, this system didn't just appear overnight. The story really starts back in 1944 at Bretton Woods. That's where the dollar was pegged to gold and basically became the world's main reserve currency. But then, in the early 70s, the US cut that link to gold. Suddenly, the dollar needed a new anchor, a new pillar to stand on. And that pillar became oil, all thanks to a historic deal with Saudi Arabia that made sure the entire global energy trade would run on US dollar.
So that system, which seemed unshakable for decades, is now facing its biggest challenge ever. The question is, why? What's causing these massive tectonic plates of global finance to start shifting?
And you can see the evidence right here in the numbers. Now, let's be clear. The dollar is still the heavyweight champion, no doubt about it. But just look at the trend. Its share of global reserves has been slowly but surely ticking downwards. It's a gradual but undeniable erosion, and it's a huge signal that central banks around the world are actively trying to not have all their eggs in one basket.
So if countries are diversifying away from the dollar, where is that money going? Well, this chart gives us a massive clue. Nations, and we're talking big players like India and China, are seriously beefing up their gold reserves. They're moving away from assets tied to the dollar and back towards the age-old safety of physical gold.
You know, this whole shift isn't happening in a vacuum. It's being pushed by a really powerful mix of things. The heavy use of financial sanctions, freezing assets or kicking countries out of the SWIFT payment system, has made a lot of nations really nervous. You add that to concerns about US debt and all the geopolitical tensions swirling around, and you've basically got the perfect storm pushing countries to build a financial system that has more than one emergency exit. So, how are countries turning all this motivation into actual action? Well, they're not just talking about alternatives anymore. They are out there, right now, actively building them. And you can see this multi-front approach right here. Russia's building its own alternative to SWIFT, China is pushing its CIPS payment system and is trying to get a petro-yuan going for oil trades. The bigger BRICS Plus group is even kicking around the idea of a whole new currency for settlements, backed by gold. And of course, India is busy making bilateral deals to trade directly in rupees, bypassing the dollar completely. But, and this is a really big but, let's be clear, dethroning the dollar is incredibly difficult. It is so deeply woven into the fabric of global finance. It still handles nearly half of all SWIFT payments. And alternatives like the Chinese yuan just don't have the same level of global trust yet. Some people even argue that the dollar's decline is a bit of an illusion because other kinds of dollar holdings have actually gone up. So this transition, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Okay, with all that global context set, let's bring it all home. What does this massive, complicated shift mean for a rising economic power like India? This is where it gets really interesting for us.
For India, this is not a simple choice. It is a strategic tightrope walk. On one side, it's a massive opportunity to elevate the rupee on the world stage, gain more control over its own economic destiny, and be less vulnerable to US sanctions. But on the other side, there are very real risks. It could make foreign investors nervous, mess with the flow of dollar remittances that so many families rely on, and potentially create a new dependency on China's currency. And this official line perfectly captures India's whole approach. It's all about pragmatism. India is actively helping to build alternatives, for sure. But it's doing it carefully, making it crystal clear that the goal isn't to tear down the current system, but to build a more resilient, more balanced one alongside. And look, this isn't just talk.
India is putting its strategy into motion. It's signing deals to buy oil in its own currency. It's setting up the crucial banking infrastructure with these special Vostro accounts, which basically let foreign banks hold rupees to make direct trade easier. It's buying gold. And it's looking to play its own unique trump cards, like the amazing UPI platform and the new digital rupee, to build the financial highways of the future.
So, when you look at this complex map of risks and opportunities, what's the recommended path forward? What's India's roadmap from here?
The strategy, when you lay it all out, is clear, and it's got many layers. It's not about a sudden, radical break from the dollar. It's about systematically and patiently building resilience. That means more local currency trade deals, carefully diversifying reserves, and building stronger economic bridges with partners all over the world. It's all about carving out a bigger, more influential role for India in a new, more balanced financial order.
What we're witnessing is a slow-motion, high-stakes reshaping of the entire global financial system. The final outcome is anything but certain, but one thing is crystal clear. The era of the dollar's absolute, unchallenged dominance is facing its biggest test yet, and countries like India are determined to have a hand in writing the next chapter.